Obviously, Rhode Island has done a lot of great things. They now have one program where every city and town collects the same thing, which had a big difference on contamination rate. We felt that was really, really good. And it's really necessary in order for us to market our materials. So, because I'm running out of time, these are the third recommendations I sort of put together. One, I really think that it's really possible for you to work with other states, Washington, New Jersey, actually also Connecticut and Massachusetts are looking at these issues also, is looking at this to come up with a US-wide legislation on extended producer responsibility that could work in the US type issue. So in a sense, a goal would be potentially a study commission to work with other states to come up. So it's not as burdensome on material producers so that they're all using the same data and all of that for these type of programs. So work on that. The next thing I said is, if you would to consider a bottle bill, we feel that a bottle bill that includes, I know you're doing plastic, but it's really important that it would include wine and spirits. Because if it does include wine and spirits, it accounts for almost 65 to 70% of the glass on the market in Rhode Island. And therefore, and then you would tell solid waste not to take glass. There'd be more collection rates, but it would stop the glass from, because in Canada sort of has single stream, but does not include glass. And if you can get that glass out of your paper shards and out of your plastic shards, it's going to raise the value of everything you put through that system. Am I correct there?
I believe so.
So, you know, in fact, some people have thought of having a glass-only deposit bill, including pickle jars. Including pickle jars, because those are the ones that aren't do it. But, and on the PET side, because he wants the PET, because it's valuable to him, even though 70% of what goes through his facility is fiber. He wants that PET, and he wants the aluminum cans. Is that it would kick in for the other materials if you don't reach at least a 50% collection rate on those after a certain time. Is a possible way of couching that. That just as a possibility of looking at it. Next thing.
And what's the deposit rate? Do you want to know?
Oh, it's got to be at least. It's got to be done.
Got to be done.
Got to be done. Got to be done.
And what's happening to the glass now in the street?
Right now, we are using it as alternative daily cover. It is not formally recycled due to changes recently in the market. We have no viable market to sell that glass.
But a glass out of a bottle, deposit legislation is totally recyclable.
Why is that?
Well, because in his system, it all gets, you put it in your bin, that bin gets thrown into the garbage truck, into the recycling truck. It all breaks, cracks. It gets dumped on the floor of his material processing facility. He doesn't get full, pretty, nice, clean bottles that he can separate out. It gets ground into everything. That's why no country in the world besides the United States collects glass with everything else. They do it separately. Because it lowers, and since we used to be able to sell all our crappy fiber and crappy plastic to China, no one cared. Okay, plastic bags. We think that a statewide ban, you already have 11 communities on it, statewide ban. It basically, when California passed it, it found that grocery bags in the litter dropped by 72%. How you structure that, you can do a fee on the bag, you can do, an alternative, you have all different ones, there's all different models. The California model is pretty good. That's one of the, I would not model California's deposit system.
Right.
EPS, We think that there could be an EPS ban similar to New York City's polystyrene ban, which was just found constitutional. And you know, if New York City can do it, I think Rhode Island can do it, okay? And then the other things that we would look is that we would establish some kind of recycled content and design requirements for a specific date. And actually, I think Rhode Island has a piece of legislation, already a piece of law that I passed back 25 years ago, that allows DEM to designate materials that are contaminants to his system. I think that's still in the books. And if it is, it might be nice to enforce that. Now, not to yell at DEM, because when I was at DEM, I had a lot of money to do enforcement, because all the money from Rhode Island has a litter tax, and it charges all beverages a fee, and all food for immediate consumption coming out of grocery stores and 7-Elevens and Cumberland Farms a fee, and they pay a tax. And that used to be a restricted receipt account that
Already disposed materials.
where we did all the commercial recycling audits. We did all of all the enforcement of those products. I remember going into okay.
So it's going to the general fund now, right?
And now the money goes to general funds. The only person who gets it is the Department of Collection, who picks up some of the litter in the streets. Correction.
Yeah.
Okay, DOC. And we used to have litter teams. All the communities used to have we used to even grant for the summer to have kids clean up the base and make signs and do education on litter control. But this is, it's a long time ago. I had brown hair then. Okay, so we do think there needs to be some kind of, in this recycled content or post-consumer recycled material requirement and a recyclability composting. We also would think that if you really wanted to light the fire, and if the governor really wanted to do something which would be dramatic, would be the first state in the country to join the Ellen MacArthur, which means just tracking and supporting these type of goals. It doesn't, and considering all the companies she's trying to get here, J&J and all that, are already members of it, it would be really good. And I know the other ones that we work with up a little bit in Pawtucket are thinking about trying it, so, I think it would be a good thing for her, okay? We do not recommend biodegradable, oxydegradable, and packaging, because in a lot of cases, and some of the requirements, like for PLA bottles and all that, the problem with those things are they are contaminant to the waste stream in many cases. And we're very leery, and unless you're in a Seattle that has a really good compost facility that can take special composting plastic, the problem is it's very hard for them to do it. Basically, San Francisco and really are the only composting of food service material.
It's an interesting comment because many of the people that buy plastics that are not currently biodegradable are requesting them.
Absolutely.
Because of the emotion attached with the litter. And so they're making the assumption that no matter what happens, stuff's going to leak, it's going to be litter, and it's going to have their name on it. So it's a terrible ad. Frito-Lay, for example, doesn't like to see Frito-Lay bags on the ground. So as much as they support recyclability and reusability and downsizing, all that, there's still a strong concern with many corporations with regards to litter. And so it's an interesting comment because I share the same view in some regards as a consumer, but as a business, people ask you to do it.
But by the way, we work with Pepsi,
Sure.
which is Frito-Lay, and they had that one that was, but it never come. It also gave people a license to litter. So it's going to be gone in 25 years. Big deal. It's going to be littered, it's going to break into little pieces for the animal and the fish to eat. So it really, and then the oxydegradable stuff and Sustainable Packaging Coalition, and I think ACC has a position on oxydegradable plastics against it also.
Is there any end of life data on the biodegradable stuff? I mean, yeah, it's degradable, like you said, in 25 10 years, but.
And it's never degradable in your landfills because your landfills are anaerobic.
There have been stuff. I mean, biodegradable is a big misnomer. The stuff that's supposed to be biodegradable is actually supposed to be industrial composting, and most places don't have industrial composting. Then if it's littered, it doesn't degrade. None of it degrades in the ocean either.
But
So
there's
that's
two,
another.
there's two words you're going to be careful with. There's biodegradable and bio-based. You can make a PET bottle that is not biodegradable out of bio-based materials, out of sugar cane and things like that. You can make a lot of things out of your Estee Lauder's tubes that are LDPE from Braskem are made from bio-based materials, which have a lower carbon footprint, but they're HDPE and they recycle just like any other HDPE recycles.
Yep.
As part of the education, the word biodegradable needs to be better defined so the consumer understands what it means. If it's industrial compostable, or if it means you throw it in your backyard and it disappears in 3 months, because I think there's a lot of confusion in that. It doesn't mean people don't market the word biodegradable and take advantage of the ignorance. I don't think it's intentional, but
You're right.
if your customers demand biodegradability and you provide biodegradability and they buy it,
Well, I always hate these. You go to these cafeterias and they spend. I'm up in skiing in Utah, and everyone has these biodegradable cups and these biodegradable plastic cups. They're paying extra for them, and what do they do with them? They're going in the same system.
They're going in the trash.
They're going in the trash.
And that's an important part to remember with also these EPS bills. No one has ever shown that they actually do anything good for the environment. The litter has gone up in San Francisco. If you look at a litter audit before the EPS ban and after the EPS ban in San Francisco, you will see that litter of the alternatives went up more than the polystyrene litter declined. People think they're degradable. They throw them on the ground.
That's what we don't want to tell.
So
that's because Seattle and San Francisco has a compostable requirement.
This is even for the paper cups. People think the paper cups are degradable. The ink litter of paper cups went up dramatically. Then there's the other component to a lot of these pieces of legislation. They're totally misleading. They talk about using recyclable or compostable. They don't enforce that component. They don't have composting in most of the jurisdictions. And the recyclability, even a paper cup in most jurisdictions is not recyclable.
Absolutely.
So the
That's
big
why we're
question
working
is,
with-
what are you doing by it?
And
Because they have
working with
higher
Starbucks
greenhouse
on
gas
the new cup
emissions.
challenge.
Hey,
Okay.
order in the court.
That's it.
Victor, you're all set?
I'm set.
was his
Okay,
last bullet.
so that was Victor's last bullet, and I don't know about the rest of the audience, but I feel like I've learned an awful lot this afternoon. And I really appreciate the time that both Keith and Victor put into their presentations today, and I think both provided us with a tremendous amount of information. Now, here I am standing as the chair, knowing I need to write a report with recommendations. And I've asked what I think is the person who's most knowledgeable about environmental packaging in the state, I'm pretty confident of that, if not in the country, I asked Victor as he was preparing this, I said, you've lived in Rhode Island your entire adult life. You've made your career in this area as a Rhode Islander, as a legacy. You know, he's doing this as a favor. I'm not a client. You know, he just says, please, Victor, come do this. Please come talk to this group. What are the handful of things you could tell us that we can at least offer to the governor as ideas that are worth pursuing? And remember what I said at the outset. We've been asked to come up with short-term, medium-term, and long-term opportunities for change. So Victor very nicely listed 5 things, 5 areas in which Rhode Island could take action. Some executive order, some legislative. There are fine points on every single one of these proposals that would be critical that a major film producer, that a major industry organization have a chance to weigh in on. And that's the process that we're just beginning discussion on. But I would offer as the chair of this little subcommittee that if I were to start someplace with recommendations from the subcommittee, and I would ask any of the subcommittee members who are sitting here if you would endorse the approach that I start with that as a starting point, keeping in mind that this has to be fleshed out further with the full task force, and then, of course, as any initiative might move forward. So I'm offering that as a possible, in my mind, my most probable course of action going forward.